chanclas. Todo despeinado porque no me dio tiempo nada ponerme las chanclas y el bañador. Voy a la playa, había subido la marea. Había subido la marea y encontré una paella.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Rangers Rebuild Report. I feel funny saying that now at this point. The playoff prep episode. I had planned on doing a mid-season discussion type video, but there was the COVID delays, and it got strange, and I'm super superstitious. And things looked good for the Rangers, and I just wanted to maintain. Meanwhile, I'm doing a video before the season's even over. As I come to you, I record this Thursday, April 14th. The Rangers have clinched. They are sitting at my ceiling when I predicted early this season that they would be a wild card team at about 95 to 100 points. With about 6 or 7 games left in the season, they have 100 points. They're in range, and technically, they're very much in a fighting spot to take the division. Well, we didn't get Eichel. I'm kind of happy about that because we paid Zibanejad, which is fine. It's funny, when the Zibanejad deal went down, people were complaining about the Kreider contract. The Kreider contract. I'm going to say this for years. He's well worth the money. It's just like Lundqvist. When Lundqvist signed that super long deal, he was under cost for the beginning end of that deal, and he was over. He was way too overpaid towards the end. It makes sense. We're paying Chris Kreider less than the Flyers are paying Kevin Hayes. A deal that was made that was lauded in the preseason was the Seth Jones deal. Yeah. But this season has been something to behold. I've been a Ranger fan for as long as I can remember, and I remember different patches and different types of Rangers teams going into the postseason. I'm just old enough to remember the '94 team and the deals that were made at the deadline there. And I remember being pissed that we got rid of Omonte and I think Gartner too. But you take the trade-off. In 2014, they went for it with a trade and brought in St. Louis. And this past deadline that passed, unless you're bearish on Morgan Barron, they really kind of chiseled up for the postseason without really giving up much. I mean, picks, which half the team's under 25 right now anyway. So who cares? There is no real team of the Rangers past that I can compare this team to, especially postseasons. There's pieces of it that feel very 1994, but 1994's team was very, very veteran heavy. There's pieces that feel 2012-ish, but 2012 didn't have the oomph, the scoring power that this current team does. 2015, you notice I skipped 14 because I already talked about the St. Louis deal. 2015, the 12 and 15 were two seasons where they made the conference finals, and I wouldn't compare either of those teams' offenses to what the Rangers are sitting on right now. This is the prettiest, the grittiest, the flashiest the Rangers have looked since maybe 97. They made it to the conference final as well. But there's a little bit of everything on this team. The one variable that you can probably get me nervous about, and I can't really argue, is the fact that this is a very young team. A lot of talent under the age of 25. You have the team anchored by people like Panarin, Zibanejad, and Kreider. And Kreider was a rookie. I remember going to that first home game against Washington where he just blasted a slap shot inside the blue line and scored. So there's people for this team to lean on. The bottom six could be the best bottom six this team has had since 94. Everything seems too good to be true. In the early 2010s, the New York Rangers were a constant 2-1, 3-2, 1-0. That was the Rangers. It was just gritty. It was defensive. Lundqvist, he played his hardest, or probably played the hardest out of anybody going. And every game was close. Every game was, just nail biting. And of course, every series went 7 because why else would the Rangers let us have any sort of relaxation? And most of those series, they were down 3-2 in Game 5. And flashes in that Tampa Bay series in 2015, we saw that our defense was no longer the glue, and things got out of control. And right before the letter, the postseason before the letter, when the Rangers beat the Canadiens, I felt okay. I felt fine. And then the Ottawa series happened, and that defense was exposed, and the bread and butter for the Rangers was officially stale. But in regards to this team, they're not very highly ranked as far as goal scoring is concerned. They're quite highly ranked in the power play category, which is I don't remember in my lifetime the Rangers being good on the power play, and I'm dead serious. Maybe 94 they were pretty good. Messier, Leach, Graves, Kovalov, Zubov. I believe that was the first line. Yeah, they were all right. They were pretty good. And in the 2010s, it was Gabrick, Callahan, Dubinsky. Just names you're not going to win. All right. So we got past Ovechkin's crew. It's just not gonna. You can't win a cup without punch. I mean, Boston has proved that. Chicago has proved that. Pittsburgh has proved that. And those are all teams that have won multiple cups since. And of course, Tampa Bay has proved that. They had a little bit of everything and not a good score. They have at least one superstar. Chicago, another team that although they're probably closer to the early 2010s, but another team that multiple cups with a spread out. They weren't just good in one spot. They had talent everywhere. This is the first time since being a Ranger fan where I feel like if things go right, they could do some serious damage. And that's a huge if. And, it's a little too much weight on the shoulders of kids. Kako in that play-in series seemed to be showing up for the first time. He hasn't played most of the season. As I speak to you, he just picked up 2 goals in one game. So who knows? Lafreniere there's the wild card. Lafreniere, Hedel, those are I could see them being overwhelmed and us getting kind of knocked around. I could see them rising to the occasion and us just being nasty. But the bottom 6, even with that insecurity, the bottom 6 is better than anything we've seen before. As far as the defense is concerned, I'd probably, if we're just playing Ranger teams against each other, the 2012 group was probably a hell of a lot more defensive minded, and I would probably take that team's defense over some stuff we got going on right now. For years, it was Girardi and McDonough in the first line. And while Fox and Lindgren are incredible, I do think McDonough had a bit more of a defensive mind than Fox did. And to counter that, Fox certainly has more of an offensive help than McDonough. But if you're scrapping and you're in tight in a game, you want to back on your defense, and Keandre Miller has not proved himself. Justin Braun, good third line rental. Let's call him what he is. I hate to say this for anybody who loves him, but I don't think Schneider's exactly ready yet. Also, we still have not Vitaly Kravtsov, also known as Libor Hayek, who's, please, I don't want to see him at all in the postseason. Patrick Nemeth, yeah, I don't know. I'd rather have old school Mark Stahl than Patrick Nemeth right now. Fox and Lindgren are that's a hell of a start. Trouba, he's played his best season as a Ranger this past year, and he's looked phenomenal. Leadership, that has been the biggest thing this team, it seems like it's striving off of, and it's inspiring. It's seemingly everybody. Trouba just playing with all the grit and heart and laying checks, getting involved in offensive moments, and Kreider on the front end, being the leader he is. Oh, yeah, by the way, he scored 50-plus goals. If you ask me how I feel about the Rangers and how they rank and match up against teams, I guess I would say I'm nervous about whatever our third line would be. But the bottom 6 is going to be better better than we've seen. Kopp, in his short amount of time, has just been awesome. Goudreau is exactly what was advertised, and we're going to get the thing that we actually paid for now. Now we're getting the Goudreau that we needed. Ryan Reeves, doubt he's going to play a lot in the postseason, but if we end up playing Washington in that first round, we have grit from last season to this. It's a heavier team. It's a faster team. It's a grittier team. It's really incredible to see, quote unquote, nothing moves that were made at the deadline. Frank Vatrano has so far looked like a steal. Tyler Mott, who just suffered an injury, doesn't seem like he might be out. he may not be a factor because he took it pretty bad the other night. But the Rangers have pieces on all four lines. You just can't say that for teams of Rangers past. The question mark I have is on defense. But is it fair to say that Shesterkin is possibly better than Lundqvist? Certainly in the early portion of his career, it's probably easier to say that. 2012, Lundqvist, I think he won the Vezina that year. Shesterkin certainly in the conversation. He's in the conversation for MVP and the Vezina. So does the defense really need to be that stellar for us to maybe steal a game or six? There's what ifs. There's a lot of what ifs. If you told me that the Rangers will get knocked out in 5, I would understand that. That seems like it could happen. If the Rangers win more than 12 games in the postseason, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. This is a very strange feeling. The problem is, as always, the Metro is tough. I mean, how many times in the last 10 years have the Rangers cost the Capitals a chance at a run? Have the Penguins cost the Rangers a chance at a run? This has been a tough division for a very long time. When you go over a decade and a half with the likes of Ovechkin, Backstrom, Malkin, Crosby, that's the same guys on the same teams for over a decade, and you can't say that about the Rangers. I love Kreider to death. That 50 goals is fantastic, but I'm not putting him in any Crosby, Malkin, Ovechkin, Backstrom scenario. The Bruins are one of the rare teams that they could fly or die by that top line, which is why I think if the Rangers somehow leapfrog Carolina and play Boston, I think things are favorable for the Rangers as far as first round matchups are concerned. Otherwise, they're playing either Pittsburgh, which is what it basically looks like, or Washington if they go on some sort of run. And the one thing that these three teams have in common is experience. If the Rangers are going to win games, series, and take over some of these teams, which, I mean, you look at the season, what the Rangers did to the Floridian teams, and if they can do that in the postseason, things look really, really bright. But the postseason is far different than the regular season. Tampa Bay is not going to be what we saw. Florida, they beefed up a little bit, but just sticking to the first round, the potential first round, Boston, Washington, Pittsburgh. The one thing that you could say about those teams that the Rangers do not have is experience. All three of those teams have something close to like 100 postseason games played in the last 10 years. They're consistently there. They're consistently in it, and they're consistently doing things right. If you want to be surprised by the Rangers, then maybe you compare them to the Columbus team that made Tampa look ridiculous. But that was just a weird year anyway. I essentially think that with the opening round, if they can somehow get past one of those three teams with experience and to see what happens. I hate being the guy that talks about something 2 weeks in advance. I really am superstitious. I don't like this. It all really depends on how that first series goes, because they can get knocked around. Their lack of experience in certain areas could show itself. They do tend to get gappy. The one complaint I'd have about the Rangers this year is giving up a couple of goals in a row and scoring a couple in a row. Like, there's been a lot of give and take. God forbid if the Rangers make the finals, and it's the Calgary Flames, it's gonna be a bad time. And the thing that wins championships, defense, that is a little nerve-wracking. That's a very young squad back there, with the exception of Braun. Even Trouba, who's 27, that's not exactly Glenn Anderson in 1994. We're all going to learn something together here in this postseason. I mean, even the person I've left out the most so far, Shesterkin, has been fantastic. He too has had some weird 3 goals against games. He's phenomenal, but he always seems to have a 1 goal against games. So many times it's been a 42 save, 1 goal performance. If the Rangers offense can show up, if Kakko can play like he did for the little bit that we saw, there might be something there. If Lafreniere wakes up and realizes what his status and stature and expectations are, if he could just reach a third more of his game, the Rangers are going to be nasty. But there's a bunch of ifs. Shesterkin, this is the first time we'll have him in a 7-game series. He may get butterflies. I sincerely doubt it, but I mean, the guy's proved himself everywhere he's gone. The first series is going to tell us a lot. Again, if you tell me they play Pittsburgh, they get swept, I'm not surprised by it. I'm curious to know what the scores are. If they beat Boston in 7, I'm not surprised by that. I'm less concerned about the scores there. For the first time in a long time, the Rangers have a team that it's not Gaborik. It's not Nash, who, depending on him, was rough. This is a team that, if Panarin plays 2/3 of what he normally does, he alone can snag a series. Kreider, who's proved himself before in the postseason, if he just keeps playing the way he has this season, they're gonna be nasty. Zibanejad, incredible. The one question mark, and the one where have you been, you may say, is Strome, which Panarin might just put over his shoulders and drag anyway. And if they're going to play Vetrano on that line, or Kopp, there's so many different variables with this team that it's exciting. I mean, I've gone into postseasons before where, I mean, when they played Philadelphia in the opening round, a couple of years back. I was nervous. The game it went 7 games. Of course it did. Ottawa in 2012. That's a team that they were down 3-2 in that series. They were just playing 7-game series like it was a requirement. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, going down 3-2 in the 5th game. Like that was the Rangers' MO. And then they beat Pittsburgh in 5, and that was a Pittsburgh team that was just so depleted. Then Pittsburgh beats the Rangers quickly towards the late 2010s, and then Ottawa takes care of the Rangers in 6. And that was a series that I don't know, that was such a bizarre. If you asked me following that Montreal series if Ottawa was going to be a problem, I would have said no, not at all. And then J.G. Pajot ended up being Gretzky reincarnated, and the Rangers defense forgot that they're playing defense. Most of this team is fresh. You have a couple of people from that Ottawa series, namely Kreider and Zibanejad. Mostly everybody else is either on the Hurricanes or the Lightning or the Wild. Let's not forget you guys over there. Let's get to some predictions here, because that's kind of why I wanted to get this video out early, because nobody's really playing for anything. The East is so over already. It's actually kind of bizarre. The East has been settled for like a month already, and it's really weird. I don't remember a time like this again since being a hockey fan. But I could see Boston taking the Rangers out. I could see Pittsburgh taking the Rangers out. I don't think Washington is the Washington we know and love anymore. I think the Washington streak of postseason against the Rangers would continue, because the Rangers just stack up more. There's more. You look at that power play. Ovechkin's still scoring his ass off, but their power play is kind of beat up. And as far as goaltending is concerned, I'm nervous on behalf of Washington. Jari has played incredible for Pittsburgh, but I don't know if anybody watched him last postseason. Who knows? Jekyll and Hyde, perhaps. The funny thing is, if you told me that the Capitals take the Rangers out in 4 or 5, that's the one thing I'd be shocked at. That's honestly the one thing that I can't imagine that happening, for a dozen reasons. Tom Wilson, he's gonna stretch 2 or 3 games alone. Pittsburgh looks like a team that got beat up by the Flyers. I mean, we saw it a couple of nights ago. Shesterkin waving goodbye, which that's locker room material. I don't just win the games and go home. But the Penguins look like they did in that series against Philadelphia, where they just got their teeth kicked in. And they resorted to fighting and being gnarly. Lots of high-scoring, terrible defensive games. Brizgalov was the Flyers' goaltender, for Pete's sake.
It's only a game.
What a mess. I could see the Penguins re-emulating something like that. I could also see the Penguins re-emulating what they've done for the last 15 years and just steamroll, because the Raquel deal, I don't think, has really shown itself yet, and most of that team was hurt all year, so they could be a serious monster, and we really haven't seen it that's where some expectation comes. But the experience factor, the top 9, the bottom 6, that's where the postseason really comes through. And we have a bunch of unproven guys. I guess I'm excited to find out the hard way. It's nice to see the Rangers. The Rangers are going to have home ice in the first round. I didn't expect them to be in the top 3 in the division at season start. If you told me that Kravtsov doesn't play a game, we don't get Eichel, and we're in the top half of the East, I would ask you what the hell happened, and then you'd tell me about Kreider, and I go, oh, of course, because the Rangers can be untested and very green, or the talent that they have on that squad could show itself, and they can be something really nasty to play against. And if Shesterkin keeps being Shesterkin, they might steal some 1-0, 2-1 games, which I love seeing those. Those were so much fun back in the early 10s. The 1-0 Mother's Day shutout from Lundqvist. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't want to be comfortable at all during that game. I'll give predictions on each of these 3. Now watch, somehow the Rangers end up playing Toronto, or it doesn't. It's very unlikely. Or maybe Pittsburgh leapfrogs both the Rangers and Carolina, and the Rangers and Carolina play each other, which Carolina, I think, is kryptonite. As far as how the Rangers line up against teams, Carolina is probably the team I'm least fond of playing. But other than that, my prediction for a series against Boston, I take the Rangers in 6. A series against the Penguins, I take the Rangers in 7. And Washington, the Rangers in 6. I think we have something here, and we'll see how wrong I am. But I did say Kreider's contract was just fine, so there's a little proof that I can be counted on. You guys have time to make predictions of your own. By all means, let me know what you think down below. What are your predictions for perhaps those 3 teams, the Boston, the Pittsburgh, the Washington series? And who are you afraid of? How far do you think the Rangers are going to go? Are they going to win 16 games? Or are they going to win 1? Can they win 1? Comment down below, and let's see. It's good. It's so good to see incredible Rangers hockey and entertaining. The Rangers are such a fun team to watch, and you couldn't say that in 2012. All right, so I don't know when I'll see you next, but maybe for round 2. If you'd like to see more produced content like this, keep in mind, I am not like a daily vlogger, sports guy. I like to put some production behind some stuff. As you could see, some of those stats too, by the way, they were, once the Rangers clinched, I took stats as of then for a number of reasons. Because, everybody's going to start resting people. Once you clinch, you don't really worry the same way. I mean, Carolina just got beaten to hell by Detroit the other night. So, yeah. So we're just kind of grinding out the last couple of games and not trying to get hurt. So the stats, I would think, matter a lot more now than they will in 8 games. So apologies. Maybe I'll come back and do a completely updated season wrap up. But I don't want to do one in what would end up being like 11 games. Let me know. Where does the Rangers season end? If you enjoy this content, I appreciate the thumbs up. It helps me get seen. If you like to see more of the content, subscribing lets me know that I should keep going. And sharing this to your local Islander fan lets them know that they're going to be home this year.